Does gloom cause autism? More at 5 o'clock. So now you're going to want to grab the prepared wheat and carrots. Do you like building? Do you like creating? Do you like construction? Well, boy do we have a job for you. Here at Hudson Construction, we are looking for employees who define themselves as all of the above, because here at Hudson Construction, we are family, and family is strong, just like our buildings built by Hudson Construction. Hudson Construction is the #1 choice for the royal family, so you can trust us with your wood. Come visit us over east in Tarrytown and join the family backed by all of Hyrule. Terms and conditions apply. Name must end in son. Hudson Construction is not backed by the entirety of Hyrule. Hudson Construction is indeed backed by the royal family. That holds true. Authorized by the Mayor of Tarrytown. You're hired. Get out there and help this idiot. Our first sign to put up is located just to the west of Hyrule Castle, where we meet the lovable idiot Addison, who explains how noble our goals are and how important it is we succeed for Hudson Construction and the people of Hyrule. This is one of the more simpler designs, as the designs later get much more complicated. This specific design uses advanced technology to support 2 sides of the sign, which for some reason some of the other signposts don't have. The sign was supported easily with the conveniently placed Hudson Construction certified wood that was left nearby. After helping Addison with our very first sign, he generously gifted us 20 rupees and shared a nice home-cooked meal of rice balls and gave me a bomb for some reason. With that, it's 1 sign down, leaving only 80 left, with a further 10 to be put up in central Hyrule. After God gifted me this really nice horse, I headed east towards the center of town, where surprise, Addison was waiting for me to save the day once again. After some incredibly hard overthinking and stupidity, the sign was erected and I earned some more rupees, another rice ball, and a brand new item, a sleepover ticket. These are somewhat unique items, as they are a key item that can only be obtained either through leveling up your pony points at stables, or gaining them from the legend himself, Addison. Sadly, these are pretty useless, as they only let you stay at stables for free, which is the equivalent of 20 rupees, but it's the thought that counts, so thanks a lot, Addison. The next few signs were put up with relative ease, which brings the total up to 5 signs completed and 3 more rice balls gained. These 3 signs were pretty standard ones that we will see many times over the journey, with one even having a pointy bottom, which normally requires much more building to support properly, which I quickly found out. After registering my horse, I made my way to the southern part of central Hyrule to put up this double whammy sign in this torrential rain with this awkward amalgamation of wooden planks. The next sign was just a short ride away across a few bridges, and after travelling through the rain, I came across one of the more unique signs I would find along the journey. This sign appeared not to be too dissimilar to the previous ones, but one thing was different. There were no Hudson Construction materials anywhere near the sign. Using my amazing problem-solving skills, I decided to use the natural resources surrounding the sign. Chopping down a few trees gave me the perfect materials to fix together a makeshift stand for the sign. And as Addison tied it all up, it brought the total to 7 signs. Arriving at the next sign, I noticed that Addison had decided to choose the most precarious spot possible for the sign, which personally I would have picked better, but I'm sure he knows what he's doing. The key to solving this situation lies in some of this weird zonai tech I found right nearby. These stakes have a super unique property that they can be pushed into the ground and will act as a connection point to glue other materials to. In this case, a nice stone slab was slapped on top of the sticky little stake to stop the silly sign from suddenly slipping off the slope. And just like that, I'm 20 rupees richer and have another rice ball in my pocket. After quickly finishing the next 3 signs with not too much fuss, it means I've completed the first of 8 sections with 11 total signs being put up. From here I decided to head straight down to the stormy Faron region to help poor Addison, who was stuck in the torrential rain. The first sign I decided to go for wasn't too far away, just before the bridge over Lake Hylia. This one was dealt with a less eloquent solution, but we were rewarded with a swim up rice ball and a mushroom before immediately beelining it to the raining mountain towards the next sign. Along the way, my scatterbrain got distracted and had to fix this broken Skyview tower. Sadly, I'm not a Skyview tower technician, but fortunately, a talking well conveniently led me straight to one. Jumping down the well led me to an ancient ruined trap, which happened to snag a fellow Hudson Construction worker who was sent out on a mission to fix the tower above. As a fellow employee, I quickly worked out how to get him out of this complicated trap and found him back up the Skyview tower, which was now up and running again, to help me find my way around the Farron region. From this tower, I flew over to the nearby sign, which was a certain type of sign, which I came to find way too easy to prop up, as this was the first of several signs, which simply just had a long plank sticking out opposite to the actual sign. This is a super basic puzzle, as all you need to do is put any object on top of the plank, and by any object, I mean any object. I decided to just use this small fan to see if it would work, and it somehow did. The next sign on the list was right by Lake Hylia, and was also the first water-based sign puzzle, which you could either use the buoyant properties of the wooden planks, or like I ended up doing here, create some sort of bridge to support the sign on the other side. The next sign was put up super easily with not too much fuss, which brings the total to 15 rice balls gained as I arrive at the next sign right nearby. This one introduces yet another brand new mechanic in the form of these floating zonai devices that will hover in the air. The hoverstones make this sign super easy to complete, as all that was needed was to use the floating stones to hold the sign up. From here, I picked my horse up from the nearby stable and had a lovely ride through the lush forest, finishing a sign along the way and one towards the end of the path. The seventh and final sign in this region was located all the way down past Llewellyn village. On my way through the village, I ignored the pirate invasion that was going on, as the job I had with Hudson Construction was much more important, and I couldn't leave Addison waiting on yet another precarious perch. This sign had a lovely view from the side of a cliff, and once again the magic stakes were used to hold it up. After collecting my payment, some special seafood rice balls and some flowers, I can tick off the second region and head straight over to the Necluda region, as this job does not come with any lunch breaks. Moving on to the next region, there were a total of 10 signs to be put up, starting with the first one just outside Kakariko village. A simple structure was used to support this first one as I continued setting up signs across Necluda. And with that sign done, it brings the total to 27. With a total of 27 signs down, the next one I had on my path was located at one of the highest points in Hyrule, being at the top of Mount Lanayru. To reach this sign, I had to cook some nice spicy peppers and begin trekking up the mountain. After the long climb to the peak, I was expecting a super difficult sign puzzle due to how hard it was to get to, but I was sadly met with one of the simplest signs, which was dealt with quickly. Heading down from the peak, I managed to complete the final sign for Necluda in the middle of nowhere, which completes yet another region, bringing the total to 29 out of 81 signs, leaving 52 signs across 5 more regions with much harder climates and challenges. My journey then took me to Lanayru, home of the Zora fish people and lovely wetlands. After constructing some balls for this sign and trekking up the mountain to realize that the sign actually just is on the path, I stumbled upon the strangest thing I had encountered this entire run. Addison had disappeared. Dun dun dun. After arriving at the Foothill stables, I was shocked to find Addison missing and no Hudson sign in sight. And in a panicked state, I wandered around the stable area, hitting rocks, talking to locals, and even tried sleeping to pass the time. After none of this work, I finally realized that I needed to reload the world, so I completed this nearby shrine, and as I was leaving it, I saw a faint light in the distance. It was Addison. After finding a rather elegant solution to this mysterious sign, I headed up to the Lanayru Plateau, completed another sign up there, and then went back down into Zora's Domain for a much muddier sign. Now being finished with Zora's Domain, I headed down to this secluded little beach, which I expected to be done with in no time at all. 5 minutes later, and a new hatred for ice physics, 35 signs have now been put up around Hyrule. After finishing the other 2 signs in the local area, I headed north on my wing to wrap up the entirety of the Lanayru area, adding another completed area to the map in the name of Hudson Construction. And if you want to do your part to help Hudson Construction, make sure to subscribe as it's free and takes no time at all. Thanks for doing your part for Hudson Construction. Now this next area is pretty light on signs, most likely because you would have to be living under a rock to miss the icon that is Tarrytown, which is pretty much the centerpiece of this region. But nonetheless, we have a job to do, and this area is still lacking the divine touch of Hudson himself. Starting off with the first sign located right next to the South Akela stables, which has a design of all time, which is sure to draw in more customers. After dealing with Addison's horrible sign constructing skills, I headed down towards the beach, where I decided to try out a new structural stable design of my own. What's better than 1 Hudson? 2. After completing the next few signs with very little struggle, it brings the total to 45 signs out of 81, which means we have just entered the back half of this grand job. It also brings up the completion of Akela, leading to 5 out of 8 areas being completed, with the next few being some of the more extreme regions, starting with Starting off down near Central Hyrule, the first couple of signs were solved with extremely simple solutions, as by now it's clear to see that all the easier ones are much closer to the center of the map compared to the trickier ones which are in the further reaches of Hyrule. After putting up the easy signs, it was now time to begin the grueling trek up Death Mountain, which fortunately I had my horse to help me out. After somehow riding straight past it and getting lost, I completed a familiar looking sign, but with flame resistant materials because obviously wood burns, which I suppose no one told Addison. After an attempted robbery from these crack dealers, I managed to make my way up to a clearly lavaless volcano, where Addison still had a wooden sign next to, so who knows how long this sign will last. After having fun on the roller coaster, I had to use my cart to successfully prop up another sign, which brings us to the incredible milestone of 50 signs erected around Hyrule, which through the power of Hudson Construction has taken no time at all. Whee! Yippee! Whee! Oh hi Addison, fancy seeing you here. On my way out of Eldon, I quickly fastened up this marvel of engineering and finally touched grass down by this lake. For this sign, I decided to build a nice little house while also getting severely confused how the rain mechanics work in this game. With my pockets full of meaty rice balls, I can now tick off another sector of our map. With the map looking rather green, I prepared for the next leg of this journey, which will be by far the hardest section of this job. With a whopping 19 signs through all different types of terrain, harsh weather conditions, and not to mention some really stupid sign designs. Addison. The Hebrew region was definitely going to be the greatest challenge of this entire job. After a quick few signs to begin the region, I decided to try my hand in the vehicle construction world, which was short-lived. The next sign was perhaps my greatest achievement that shadowed all my other builds before, but sometimes one's greatest creation also leads to their downfall. I grabbed my horse once again this time for a more snowy journey to the next sign. Luckily with my drip and Addison's cooking, the harsh weather was no issue, and with the completion of that snowy sign, it brings our total built signs to 58. Although this sign was easy to get to, the next one was a bit further amidst the cold mountains, which although it was somewhat difficult to climb to, the actual sign itself just required a single metal box. Heading south, I completed several pretty basic signs with not too much of an issue, and even just using a single plank for this one. Don't even ask. Heading back up the hill, I once again continued my minimalist building by using a single hook for this sign. Now at this point, around our 67th sign, which was just on the edge of the ravine here, I discovered a mechanic that since I had never been the greatest cook or had been exceptionally hungry, which was that the cooking section of the menu actually has a hard cap of 65 items. I was starting to wonder why Addison had started just giving me 2 red rupees, and quickly discovered that there is a cap to meals just like how there is to weapons or shields. After doing further testing on a chicken drumstick and taking a lovely ride through the canyon, I came across one of my favorite types of signs. The reason why should be pretty obvious. Nice. This next sign was really easy. That joke got a bit of a chilly reception, and as was I, feeling the cold climbing up mountains and stumbling around the snow searching for Addison. For some reason, he decided to build a sign all the way up a snowy mountain, not near any track, likely to only ever be seen by us two, but hey, you have to admire his devotion to the cause. To finish off Hebra, I had to head to the most isolated sign in all of Hyrule in the far northwestern reaches of the Icy Lands. After a long flight through the snowy skies, a simple TP was able to finish the 19th and final sign in the Hebra region. With a whopping 72 signs put up, it leaves the final 9 signs to be completed down in the scorching Gerudo region, which has its own challenges in the form of extreme heat as well as extreme cold, and even just as rough as terrain as Hebra. Arriving at the entrance to the desert, I was saddened at the fact that I was not able to take my horse any further, as well as I got insulted by this Gerudo who somehow had no idea who I was after all I had done for Hyrule. Being a Hudson Construction worker is such a thankless job. So I quickly collected my broken ego and dashed through the shade, avoiding the fiery sun, until we met with Addison in a nice shady part of the path and finished our first Gerudo sign. Whilst running around aimlessly, I remembered that I have a random ice rod which I got sometime earlier, which really came in handy for travelling through this area during the day. For this next sign I made a chair. This Goron was a fan of my chair. On the way to the next sign, I stumbled upon another fellow Hudson Construction worker named Sorsen, who magically appeared up this lift and seemed just as shocked as I was. He was nice enough to fix this tower, which may come in handy for getting around later on. Then with just one single metal box, another sign was erected, making it 76 signs down with only the last 5 left. After getting lost for several minutes, I headed into the gorge to solve yet another sign with a single boulder, before returning to the newly fixed Skyview Tower to head all the way down to the next sign. This sign was a straight lengthy flight, but once I arrived, I found that we had a new mechanic to mess around with. These funny looking eggs help to stabilize builds and are hence called stabilizers. Utilizing this function allowed me to make a super simple yet unstable structure with the stabilizer as a base, which meant another sign was added to the completion list. Deep in the Gerudo Desert, I managed to find and complete the first sign super easily, but the next one was a bit harder due to the giant sandstorm that was terrorizing most of the sandy dunes. With the penultimate sign completed, our job had almost come to an end, but the last sign was going to be a journey as the road ahead was tough. Crossing the desert in a sandstorm by itself is tricky, and running into a Molduga does not make it any easier. Coming out of the other side of the desert, I now had to climb halfway up a snowy mountain, and with such little stamina, it's not fun. Reaching the final sign, it seemed like it would end up being an incredibly simple sign to complete, as all that was required was a single stabilizer and a single plank of wood. But as simple as things may seem, my stupidity came into play when, to activate the stabilizer, I used my flame weapon I had on my back to make sure I wouldn't freeze to death, which set the wood plank on fire. In panic, I quickly tried to get the sign up, but the idea fell through, so my next idea was to use snowballs instead, which also ended up melting too quickly for it to stand. With most of the resources been exhausted, I was only left with the simplest solution by just sticking 2 stabilizers together. And this sign pretty much sums up all of these signs, is that the simplest solution normally will work the best. And with the completion of this sign, that means that we have put up all 81 signs around 8 different regions and have successfully spread the glory of Hudson Construction. Addison was also overjoyed and gave me a special reward for finishing, a wonderful artistic collage of President Hudson's face, which in all honesty is actually a really cool fabric, and it even glows in the dark.